One review. Book 101 is all about the books that I read for the last 40 years. And today I have my special guest. She is avid reader, writer, podcaster, and of course YouTuber. No other than Miss Lucinda Sage-Midgorden.
Very good.
Welcome to Book 101, Miss Lucinda. Can you please introduce more about yourself?
Yes, thank you, Daniel, for having me on your show. I have been a story lover since I was a child when my parents instituted family movie night, and almost all of my educational and work choices have had to do with stories. And I was involved in theater. So, theater is a big, you do lots of shorts. They're short, they're 2 hours long, but it's a very usually intense story. And I was an actor, I worked backstage, I built costumes, I built sets, I ran the lights and sound. About the only thing I didn't do was the direct the also later I was a director, but was never a designer in that. And then when my husband and I moved to Arizona, I became a teacher and I taught drama and English. And then later I started teaching theater at the community college. And I've been retired now for about 3 years. And I started podcasting in 2020 during the pandemic. Before that, I was writing my blog, I was writing my novel while I was part time teaching at the college. And I'm now working on my second novel. And my sister and I have a YouTube channel called Classic Cinema with the Sage Sisters. So practically everything I do has to do with stories. I love analyzing them, I love reading and analyzing the characters. And I love doing that with movies as well. So it's I like character-driven stories.
Miss Lucinda Sage Midgorden. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. And what do you think storytelling is such a universal human phenomenon across cultures and throughout history? What fundamental need does it fulfill?
Well, it's probably one of the oldest teaching tools. We teach our children through stories, and they get a chance to see characters that are making good decisions or bad decisions. So that helps with critical thinking skills, and it also helps them form empathy, maybe for the characters, and compassion. And then, if you analyze enough stories, eventually you start becoming emotionally intelligent because you see that if something bad happens to you, lashing out and being violent is probably not the best solution. And so, but it takes a while to build up the emotional intelligence part. But empathy and compassion are really great things. You also get to walk in somebody else's shoes and understand other cultures or other time periods and another person's point of view. So that's all of those things I think are why stories are so important.
Definitely. And Miss Lucinda, how do stories allow us to grasp aspects of human nature like love, grief, ambition, or fear in a way that abstract facts or data simply cannot?
Well, human beings are emotional beings. And as much as I think the analytical disciplines are really great, you can't really learn about love from math or from scientific experiment.
Yes.
So it's the arts and humanities where we get to examine what the human characters are doing, or the characters are doing, the decisions that they're making, and also when we read their body language or their facial expressions and hear their tone of voice, or when we get to hear their inner thoughts in novels, that really helps us connect with the characters, and then we learn something from them. And we might not consciously learn it right away, but at some point, we're going to face a situation maybe that one of the characters in one of the stories we've been consuming, um, has faced, and then we get to say, "Oh, yeah, I remember that. I remember what that character did, and maybe I can do the same thing." Or, "I remember the choice that character made, and it wasn't so great, and I don't wanna make that decision." So, that's one of the ways we can learn from stories.
Definitely. That's one way, people. Can you explain how immersing ourselves in a character's story cultivates empathy and deepens our understanding of perspective different from our own?
Well, from an actor's point of view, actor-director point of view, we always analyze the stories and the characters really to the smallest detail. So, for example, we ask, "Why is this character making this choice right now?" And then it's rarely in, at least in theater or in movies, it's rarely you you don't get to see behind the scenes, behind, like, when they were children and what happened to them, or what happened to them, when they were teenagers and they were being bullied. We So you have to kind of make up that. So you see a character doing something and you say, "Now, why is that character doing it?" Well, it could be something happened to them when they were a child, or maybe they lost someone that they really loved, and they're still grieving that loss. Or maybe they were bullied, or they were in war and they suffered these terrible traumatic experiences, or they had terrible traumatic experiences in their family life. And so then the director and the actor get to choose that. Well, when you're reading a novel, that's a lot of times that information is given to you in the novel. And, if you're paying attention, then you start to go, "Oh, yeah, okay, I understand why this character is making this decision." It might not be a good decision, but you kind of understand the background of why they're doing it.
Miss Lucinda, how have stories traditionally served as a vehicles for transmitting moral values, ethical dilemmas, and lessons about consequences, shaping our collective understanding of right and wrong?
Well, we have stories from millennia ago, and the more you read, the more you watch movies and television, the more you go to plays, uh, you just get this wonderful bank of information. And uh, yeah, one of the questions that my mentor used to ask us to think about when we were playing a character is this character a moral character? What is their moral bent? And so if you start asking yourself that about the characters that you're reading about or you're watching, and again, you're comparing them maybe to yourself. And we don't like what the character is choosing, or their moral stance on life, but it gives us a chance to think about a different point of view. And so, and again, stories are teaching tools. So, that's why the Bible is one of the big teaching tools, or other sacred texts, love is important. Um,
Yes.
yeah.
Lo-
Um,
love is
caring
inspiration.
Yeah, caring for others is important. So that all the literature, you get a myriad of different viewpoints about that, about moral stances or even, you know, how you feel about yourself. You get to see how a character feels about themselves.
Miss Lucinda, beyond
Mm,
entertainment, what role do stories play in preserving collective memory, cultural heritage, and lessons learned by previous generations about the human condition?
Well, I just think that uh, if we didn't have literature, we might be really a lot a lot less inclined maybe to communicate with each other. Uh, I mean, we have this rich heritage. Every single culture has a rich heritage of stories that tell about events in history or events, among family members, things that family members have to deal with, or friends, or in the culture, how the culture is changing. So, we just have to have the stories because it helps us compare what happened then to what's happening now. And I just think that's really important.
Yes, very well said, Miss Lucinda. Beautifully articulated. As an avid reader, writer, podcaster, and YouTuber, what are your short term and long term goals? Miss Lucinda? Miss Lucinda? Hello? Hello, test mic. Hello. Can you hear me, Miss Lucinda? Hello, test mic. Hello. I think Miss Lucinda is disconnected. So while we're waiting for her, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, people. My other podcast, because my abstract essay is already in fifth season, abstract poetry in second season, and my book 101 review in its fifth season too. Comedy 101 in second season, and my food 101 in fifth season as well. Geography 101 in fourth season, and my baby podcast Law 101 and Mental Health 101, Love Letters in third season, and Movie 101 Review and Music 101 in fourth season, and Science 101 and Sex 101 in its first season. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcast. And Miss Lucinda is not yet available. Please do listen to one of my audiobooks. People, my audiobooks, because my book 101 review volume 3 is on Audible, and my book 101 review volume 2 selected, and my book 101 review volume 1 highly recommended. And of course, my climate change book, Earth Fever: Unraveling Climate and Our Race to Restore Balance, and thread of existence, waving the tapestry of life or tapestry of life. And life is too short, a journey of discovery, fulfillment, and joy. Available on Amazon, Audible, and one of the bestsellers. Please listen to them because they are one of a kind. And Miss Lucinda is not yet in, and for sure we will resume this, or I will just close this episode by saying let's support her. Uh, she's a podcaster as well, like me. And the name of the podcast is, let's see, what's the name of the podcast? Color and art empower wellness. I think that's not. I think about movie. The podcast itself. They talk about movie. So people, let's support Miss Lucinda through her podcast, through writing, and the website is sagewoman.life, category.podcast. Okay, people, let's support Miss Lucinda, because if you support her, more and more and more empowering episodes of the podcast itself, more and more empowering YouTube video to come for sure. So let's give a big, big hand to Miss Lucinda Sage-Midgorden. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. And again, people, let's support Miss Lucinda Sage-Midgorden through her podcast, through her YouTube channel. So, more to come, people. See you soon.